Welcome to episode number 263 of the Marine Layer podcast. It's a mailbag episode. We'll open it up and answer your guys' best listener questions. Speaking of listener questions and really fan ideas, there was an idea floating around Mariners Twitter this week that is wild, funny, crazy, and could be the ultimate hypothetical leading up to this trade deadline. We'll dive all into that and all that discussion. And we also have our number 4 MLB Draft Spotlight.
Your guys' reminder, if you're listening to these episodes, make sure to download and rate and review 5 stars. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, please hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out when you hit subscribe on YouTube. It helps the channel. It helps the two of us. You can find all of our stuff over at marinelayerpod.com between merch, Patreon, live show schedules. The whole 9 yards is over there, including all of our episodes. That's marinelayerpod.com. Then you can check us out all across social media at marinelayerpod.
Let's get it rolling.
The pitch from Acevedo. A drive deep to right field. Down the line. The Mariners win this game 2-1. The dream lives. They're going to the playoffs. One more from Gant. There you go. Left field. We got a tie ball game. Julio. Oh, baby, what a moment. Tie ball game is 7-7.
And we welcome you to this episode of the Marine Layer podcast, part of the Just Baseball Podcast Network. Recording on Thursday afternoon, July 3rd. It seems like the Mariners, again, might have taken some notes from our discussions here on the podcast, Lyle. Going into the week, it's like, all right, who's going to hit around Cal Raleigh? Who's going to hit cleanup? Who's going to really support this lineup outside of the big dumper? And then Randy Arozarena happened. How about that?
Shout out Randy. We've said it, we've talked about it, and we'll just state it here again. When Randy Arozarena gets on a heater, he can carry an offense for a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time, whatever the stretch is that Randy's on a hot streak, he can carry an offense. So far in this Royals series, Randy's essentially carried the offense. And not to say they had a world beater type night on Wednesday, but Randy was the whole difference in Wednesday's win. He hits the home run, and then he has the sac fly, which ended up being the game-deciding run. Shout out Randy.
And Randy has shown the ability this season also to fight through a little bit of adversity, got off to the really hot start. Then in the few weeks after that, after the first month of April, by June 6th, he ended up, his slash line wasn't great at that point. It was trending in the wrong direction. But since then, I mean, he's really turned it around in the last month and has gotten himself back up to where he was in April. Like, listen to this stat. We posted this on our Instagram earlier this week, and I tweeted out these numbers from the Mariners' offensive performance from April versus what they did from May 1st on. And there's some pretty stark differences. You and I have talked about the difference that Jorge Polanco was first month versus since then. We've talked about the difference of what Dylan Moore has done in the first month and then since May 1st as well. I mean, Cal Raleigh's one of the few guys who's really improved in that sense. J.P. Crawford had tailed off a little bit in that span for... He's still having a solid season, but it hasn't been quite as good as it was in that first month. There's one guy in that group that I tweeted out that has been consistent and has been essentially level both in April and then since April, and that's Randy Arozarena. In the first month of the season, when the Mariners were scoring a bunch of runs, Randy had a 121 WRC+. Since May 1st, as of earlier this week, it's probably gone up at this point, Randy Arozarena has a 120 WRC+. It's pretty important when Randy's doing that. And he's contributing to the lineup, and he's slugging, and he's hitting home runs, and overall helping the Mariners score the runs they need to go out there and win. Because, look, there are some points where you're going to get to, like yesterday, and the Mariners, yesterday meaning Wednesday, the Mariners are going to put out a lineup that doesn't have Cal Raleigh in it, and they're going to have to give him a day off, where you and I sit there and look at the lineup and be like, this sucks. This lineup sucks. How are they going to score runs to win the game? They're going to need to rely on one guy. And boy, did they ever. And Randy came through, and shockingly, they scored enough runs to win the game, Lyle.
Which was 3, but hey, sometimes that's all you need. You know what? Randy has an 800 OPS now on the season as we sit here on Thursday afternoon and record. For the year, Randy, 800 OPS. That's a good hitter, a good year, and he has really been a difference maker, especially when he's been hot. So shout out to Randy. Also, shout out Logan Evans. He's back. Our guy. He got called back up here on Thursday, and he's going to start here on Thursday night. So we're recording ahead of that start. I also think it's fairly ironic that he's going to be starting in this game when the Mariners are taking on Seth Lugo, because we've seen some comps floated out there since Logan made his debut this year that, yeah, there's a little bit of Seth Lugo in there. He's not going to overpower you, at least to this point in his career. Throws a bunch of different pitches, gets soft contact, keeps his team in games. And when he's at his best, is really good. As we know about Seth Lugo over the last 2 years, he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball. So, I don't know. It's cool to see him go up against the guy he's been comped to a bit.
And I'm excited to see what he does in his second stint in the majors. We saw what Emerson did when he came back for his second stint this season, what he worked on down in Tacoma, and then what he brought back up to the big leagues. I'm excited to see what that looks like for Logan and what kind of things he's tweaked and if he'll, approach things a little differently now that he's absorbed a few major league starts and knows what to go and work on in a lower pressure environment. I'm very excited for that. Why ultimately do you think they decided it was time for Logan to come back up and start more games as opposed to just letting Emerson feel things out?
Emerson's velo's been a little down in his last couple starts. I don't know if that's the entire reason. I don't think his outing against the Royals alone got him sent back by any means. Like it's very, very unlikely that when you built up even as much track record as Emerson Hancock has, which still isn't a ton to this point, but he had some really good starts throughout the year. I'm going to guess there's maybe some stuff under the hood that the Mariners are seeing, whether it's the dip in the velo and could be a few other things that got him sent back. I don't know if there's a perfect answer for why he got sent back. They haven't really talked about it to this point, but if I had to guess, they're seeing some things from Emerson that maybe to them warranted some concern. And for Logan Evans, who we know they really like and we know has really good stuff and some really good potential, that they may have seen some stuff play up from him or more so stay the same from where it was in the big leagues in his last few outings in Tacoma, that they said, yeah, we're ready to give him a little bit more of an elongated shot, because you would assume here that he would run with this until Bryce Miller's back.
I also feel like this is a little bit just for... It also works out that this could be some bullpen help too, where they just give the bullpen an extra arm for a day to offset really anything else.
Yeah, there could be a world where after the All-Star break, they bring Hancock back. I'm not saying that's impossible, but sure, maybe they felt like they needed the extra bullpen arm. Logan was slated to start Friday for Tacoma in Utah before he got called back up. And by the Mariners starting him on Thursday, they're pushing everybody a day back. Maybe they feel like that's going to help the starters too, to get everybody an extra day of rest and then get the rest during All-Star week. So there could be something to that as well. But
so a number of things with this decision. You give Logan a second look. You give the bullpen some extra arms, potentially some extra rest. You do the same thing with your rotation. We're not quite in the dog days of summer yet, but for the guys who have been in this rotation the entire season, like Brian Wu especially, just going out there and bulldogging it, same with Luis Castillo, this is when things, you might start to feel a little tired and a little fatigued, and getting that extra day in a stretch where you have 17 games in a row, I think is kind of important. So we'll see. And I'm anticipating Logan Evans pitching well. The Pirates are not a good offensive team, so I would anticipate Logan's going to go up there and he's going to feel confident.
He's not pitching against the Pirates.
Pirates. The Royals are even worse offensively. Blanket statement. The two teams he could potentially face in this homestand cannot score runs. Or not at as high of a rate as everyone else. So that kind of works out for him.
I think what will be telling in the Logan Evans versus Emerson Hancock totem pole ranking is who's in the rotation after the All-Star break. If it's still Logan and he sticks, that means they feel like he's probably to some extent passed up Emerson Hancock on the totem pole. If they bring Hancock back, that means it wasn't all performance-based or stuff-based for Emerson for why they sent him down, that it was maybe to what you're talking about as a possibility of getting the bullpen a little bit of extra rest, pushing the rotation a little bit back, etc. And I'm not saying those things had nothing to do with the move, period, but I think in terms of who's got the upper edge right now, who's starting out of the All-Star break in the rotation will be telling to that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it will be.
Yeah. You know what? One other thing before we get to our very, very fun hypothetical. Another pretty cool thing for Logan, too. Where's he making his next start after this Royals one?
In Detroit.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, grew up a Tigers fan, going to all these games. He loved Miggy. I mean, you know all his family and friends, like all his buddies I met at his debut that flew out for the start. I'm sure going to be at that one. So that'll be pretty cool. I would be interested to know how many family members and friends Logan has at that start. I'm guessing it's going to be a lot because obviously
he's going to be the max ticket allotment.
I would guess he's going to have the max ticket allotment, and then probably having friends that aren't even in his inner circle also just going to the game and showing up and buying tickets, because he had so many people, which was so cool, travel out for his debut. But when it's right in your backyard, I mean, it's even more people. So that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward. Yeah.
Now, see, that should be very fun, and it'd be a fun matchup for him too. I mean, not every day do you get to go up against the best team in the American League and really test yourself.
Yeah,
so it'll be fun.
Yeah, well.
So, speaking of the Tigers, by the way, because you and I noted this, they put out the starters. Congrats to Cal. Cal's starting at catcher for the American League. But how about the names in that lineup? Speaking of that,
Javi Baez, Ryan O'Hearn. This is one of the worst American League starting lineups, or just all-star starting lineups, I think I've ever seen. At some point down the road, when we do more bullpen banner topics, which is our national brand now for anybody who hasn't seen it yet or heard of it, it's all social media content. We've had a blast with it. It's about 5-6 months old, and it's been really fun so far. And we've seen some nice traction on it, which has been cool. Anyway, that's going to be a trivia topic at some point. 2 years from now, trying to get somebody to remember that Ryan O'Hearn started an all-star game.
Or that the two sides of the Javi Baez trade with the Mets are starting in center field for each league, and neither of them is a Met.
How's Frank feeling?
Has anyone asked him? You know that photo I sent you yesterday? Him walking around and talking to that fan in New York? Maybe that's what he brought up.
Yeah, somebody posted a photo of Frank just biting as hard as humanly possible on his glasses and talking to some random fan and screaming about the Mets in the middle of New York City. For as on brand as that would be for him, I thought it was AI at first. I actually thought it was AI, and then the more I looked, I was like, "Oh, this is real." Like,
did you see how much money he's spent on glasses so far? I think it's either for the last year or so far in the year. Regardless, it's a staggering amount. Did you see how much?
I think he's burned like $1,000 in glasses.
Oh no, I thought it was $3,000.
Because he's broken so many pairs out of fury with the Mets. That's unreal. The last thing I was going to say on Logan Evans making a couple starts here before the break, at the very least, is I really hope he gets some run support. I really hope he gets some run support in this game, and the Mariners find a way to get to Seth Lugo here on Thursday. You guys will know the result of this when the podcast is out and you're listening to this. But the Mariners have to take advantage of this homestand, man. Like, they're right now 2-1 on the homestand. You've got to find a way to go minimum 5-2. We talked about 6-1. 5-2, I'm sorry, it has to be the minimum. Despite facing Seth Lugo on Thursday and despite facing a Pirates team this weekend that's been hotter than the sun all of a sudden, you have to find a way to go 5-2 because these games are going to be too tough in the next few weeks, too close to the trade deadline when you need a period of time to build some ground, and this is your shot. If you go 4-3 in this homestand, or God forbid worse than that, that's going to be a problem.
So we'll have to see. Let's get to our main topic.
Yes.
The main topic that has been stirred up on Mariners Twitter this week. Pretty hypothetical, but there are some cases to be made that this could be pitched out there as a realistic idea. So let me give you the SparkNotes version of it. There are people online suggesting the Mariners go trade for Ronald Acuna Jr. from the Atlanta Braves. That statement alone sounds pretty insane, given the state of the two franchises and all the success the Braves have had this month. But there's been a lot of ideas kicked around on the semantics of it and how realistic it is. But I think this would be a good opportunity to break down this subject and engage in a very fun yet thoughtful hypothetical as we lead into this holiday weekend. So, Lyle, where would you like to start on this?
Let me start by hitting 3 quick points. Number 1, it is 4th of July weekend, everybody. It's a fun weekend. A lot of people, it's their favorite weekend of the year, and there's a very good case for it. So we're trying to have some fun here on the pod as we hit 4th of July weekend. We know there's a little bit more credible rumors out there about Alex Bregman. We know they're there. We are going to talk about it Monday. So if you're looking to hear that, just hang with us for a couple extra days. We will talk about it then. But we wanted to have some fun here on 4th of July weekend. So that is number one. Number two is, it's not just the Mariners Twitter thing. It was talked about on MLB Network by Joel Sherman, who threw the idea out there of, do the Braves need to listen in on a Ronald Acuna trade? Would the Mariners specifically,
which he named,
be a fit for this, which is what I'm getting at. He said the Mariners should be picking up the phone and trying to make this happen. So it was talked about on MLB Network. Now, does Joel Sherman have sources behind this? I'm going to assume no, but it is a fascinating idea. And number three, most importantly of all, we know how I feel about the idea of Kyle Tucker playing right field for the Mariners come next year. And that is still far and away my number one guy. That's my guy. And he's still going to be playing right field for the Mariners next year. But, again, let's say hypothetically, somehow Thanos alters the universe and he isn't. My number two guy, if that were to happen, and Thanos snaps his fingers, would be Ronald Acuna Jr. And you know what? I'd live with it. I would just simply live with it as I sit here with a smile on my face with everybody watching on YouTube. So, is Kyle Tucker still my number one? Yes. Could I settle for Ronald Acuna? And it's funny, I'm laughing thinking about settled. Also, yes. And there I conclude my opening three statements.
There's a hypothetical trade package from our guy Jage, friend of the podcast, who he literally named it Social Experiment. And it was very much a social experiment. We'll get to that in a little bit. But let's talk the background before we actually talk about this trade he suggested. Why would this be realistic between the Braves and the Mariners? If you're saying, okay, this idea, guys, sounds absolutely fucking crazy. How would this ever happen? Why are you even talking about this? This is a waste of time. Let's try and work through why this would actually work on both sides. Okay, hang with me here for a second. We can start off with the super obvious one right now, Lyle. That the Braves are 11 games back in the East right now, and they're 6.5 games out of the wild card spot. They're not really good at anything right now this season. There are a lot of things that have not gone well for them. Also, the Braves have the 26th rated farm system in Major League Baseball. Guys they have spent real money on, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, and Michael Harris, have all taken big steps back offensively the last couple of years. Chris Sale, their best starter, will be 37 years old next year. And the Braves, like sustainability, like the Mariners, their current product, the way everyone's playing, is not very sustainable. And there's only kind of one way to really reset that majorly given the pieces they have on their roster. That's a first start. What do you want to add to that?
Might have to make a trade. Doesn't sound like a great situation. Doesn't sound like the Braves are set up for the future. Now, I will say, too, you want to talk about standings. You said the Braves really haven't been very good. Here's some perspective. The Marlins have just passed them up. Now, the Marlins, similar to the Pirates, have actually been pretty hot as of late. The Marlins have ripped off 6 or 7 in a row at this point, or at least they had as of a couple days ago. And they're playing really good baseball right now. That young core, like we saw back in April, is kind of clicking. I mean, Yuri Perez just had an awesome start, and Agustin Ramirez is hitting bombs. And as a result, they've passed the Braves, the Marlins. The Braves are in a bad spot. So yes, to everything you just said, I think there's real merit to what you're kind of bringing up here about, are the Braves going to be forced to reset at some point? It may not involve trading Ronald Acuna, we'll see, but they are going to have to reset to some extent because you know what? The roster they have put together right now isn't good enough.
And their farm system specifically is a reason why they should, if they're going to reset and take a massive swing of resetting, why getting a massive haul back for somebody like Ronald Acuna Jr., why that would make sense. Not only is the Braves farm system rated 26th in baseball right now, 11 of their top 12 prospects, shout out to you for looking this up, 10 of their top 12 prospects in their farm system are pitchers. And their one hitter in their top 12 is 18 years old in rookie ball.
Yeah. 11 of their 12. Yeah.
Yeah, 11 of their 12, sorry.
11 of their 12 top prospects are pitchers. Their one hitter, a guy by the name of Jose Perdomo, is 18 years old, has not made it out of rookie ball yet, and his projection to the big leagues on MLB Pipeline says 2029. In English terms, offensive reinforcements are not coming for the Atlanta Braves. And right now, Ronald Acuna on his own is not making them a playoff team for as unbelievable as he's been. So the Braves are in a tough spot. Matt Olson's the only other guy really hitting. Austin Riley, not hitting. Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies have been brutal. You want to talk about Marcell Ozuna. He's even having a down year from where he usually is.
And he's going to be a free agent.
Right. The Braves are really not set up very well all of a sudden. You look at that roster, Albies and Ozuna are going to be free agents. Albies also isn't playing very well. Michael Harris feels like he's almost lost it, so to speak. He looks like a totally different guy than his rookie year, and not in a good way. And you talked about this before we hit record. Their shortstop spot's a disaster.
Yeah, so Nick Allen, I believe, is their shortstop right now. He's a really good defender. He can't hit to save his life. They started the season with Orlando Arce as their shortstop, the guy they won the World Series with, but they DFA'd him. So that's all in flux.
Here's what this comes down to, right? Is the likelihood of Ronald Acuna getting traded high? No. I would probably put the odds very low. 10% or less. But you know what? What were the odds of Rafael Devers getting moved? Probably about that. And then he got moved. You just never know in the game of baseball, especially when you pick up the phone and you call a team and force them to pick that phone up. I'm not saying this is going to be easy. The Mariners will not fleece anybody for a trade for this type of player, and you will especially not do it to Alex Anthopoulos and the Braves, who are as good of a front office as almost anybody in baseball, for Ronald Acuna Jr. But if you call and you make them pick up the phone, they will listen. Any team will listen if you make it worth their while.
It's not like an ideal like this would come without risks. These are games that Ronald Acuna has played in the last 5 seasons. 82, 119, 159 when he won the MVP, 49 and 36 as of this year. Not on the field a lot. Has had major knee problems, I believe, with both knees. Has he torn both his ACLs, I think? He's torn at least one.
I believe so. Well, he's had 2 torn ACLs. I believe it's been in both knees. So he has had multiple ACL surgeries, but also doesn't that feel a little fluky? Torn ACLs kind of just happen.
They do, but some people have more sensitive muscle structure than others.
Well,
given that a good majority of baseball players don't tear their ACL ever in their entire lives.
Let me ask you this. Does Ronald Acuna look like he's currently playing off of 2 torn ACLs? My answer to this would be no. He's looking like the guy that's a top 5 player in baseball.
Right. What were his stats last year?
Last year they weren't great before he got hurt, but it was
about
only
league
50,
average.
But it was 50 games. I don't think he was playing with a torn ACL. He went down and got it hurt, remember?
And he's played less than 50 games this year.
I'm just saying, I don't think the reason he was playing badly last year was because of a knee injury. He re-injured that knee.
But that also kind of leads into this discussion, right? Where it's like, okay, at age 26, even though he was coming off an MVP, Ronald Acuna was a league average player last year. And the package I'm going to throw out to you, if he's a league average player, would get somebody fired.
It would. But also, he just won the MVP the year before. And if I had to guess, Ronald Acuna was not going to finish 2024 with a 100 WRC plus had he been healthy all year. He would have picked it up, and he would have gotten hot, and he probably still would have made an all-star game. I bet you he would have been fine.
Even a 120 with the defense he plays. His defense, by the way, not very highly graded. It can sometimes be an adventure with Ronald out in right field. But he's got a cannon for an arm. So that right there is a plus. He is not going to come here. He would not come here and win because of his defense. It would need to be because of his bat. And you're not doing a trade with the Braves because of his bat. Why should the Mariners do this trade, Lyle? Because they should. I don't feel like I have to say anything else.
It's time to win.
Yeah.
You don't need us to tell you how good Ronald Acuna is offensively. Fine. If you want us to read you the numbers of what he's done so far this year, his WRC plus is about 200. He's hitting 346, and he is absolutely mashing in the time that he's been back on the field off the ACL injury. If you need a refresher on that MVP year, he OPS 10-12. His OPS plus was 171, so he was 71% better than league average, and he had a 30-70 year that year. He hit 40-70. He hit 41 bombs and swiped 70 bags.
With who as his hitting coach?
That's true. Listen.
Kevin Seitzer, by the way.
Did the Mariners hire Kevin Seitzer as a chess piece to then later acquire Ronald Acuna? Next on Undisputed.
Well, people are saying, Lyle. People are saying.
Dude.
Here's two things that actually make this make sense, though. It's Acuña's salary. And, I mean, you could even... Of course he's going to fit on the roster because his name's Ronald Acuña Jr., but the Mariners have the third worst right fielder hitting position in baseball. Third worst OPS in baseball in right field. Like, that's... In terms of if you're going to quote-unquote look at the numbers, that is a number right there. But Acuna is making $17 million a year for the next 3.5 seasons. He's got 2 club options.
Let me speak that out in English terms for anybody. That would essentially be replacing Mitch Haniger's contract. So if you were to act as if Mitch Haniger had a 3.5-year club control stretch on what his contract is right now, I guess it would be 2.5 because he's under contract this year. Or it'd be 3. Sorry, 3. Like, act as if Haniger's... Again, act as if Haniger has 3.5 years left on his contract. Take that away and replace it with Ronald Acuna. Is that okay with everybody? I would hope so.
It seems, yes.
So,
yes, Lyle.
Mitch Haniger is making $15.5 million this year. Ronald Acuna is going to make $17 million for each of the next 3.5 years. Or in the next 3 full seasons, he will make $17 million. So if you're the Mariners and need a reason to back this up, you say, oh, we have to keep paying a right fielder around that same salary, except it's Ronald fucking Acuna. Not only should you be saying yes to that in a heartbeat if it's just the player and his contract alone, but then you can also still go out and make a big move elsewhere if you want on your infield, because that's not really adding to what the current payroll is very much. It's pretty stagnant. And the player you're getting is an MVP.
Let's get to this trade package. This has people worked up.
Yeah, so this is where people got some cold feet, to put it lightly. But I guess I'll say take a breath if you haven't heard the package yet.
This is the package that Jage put out on Twitter. I recommend it at the Jage page on Twitter if you want to go see it. It's got a lot of interaction to it. We'll read the results here in a second. But here's the mock package for the Mariners to go out and acquire Ronald Acuña Jr. The Braves would receive George Kirby, Matt Brash, Lazaro Montes, Colt Emerson, and Johnny Farmelo, and the Mariners would get back Ronald Acuña Jr. The results of this poll that Jage put out, would you do this trade? 42% only said yes. 58% said no, they would not do that trade. And I am floored at that result. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. An opportunity to get, at his peak, one of the 5 best players in baseball. And people are saying no.
Guys, we love you all. You guys are awesome. We appreciate every single one of you guys and every single person we've interacted with, met in person, talked to online, like over DMs on Instagram, Twitter, etc. You guys are all awesome. I want to preface this with that. If you're voting no on this, what the fuck are we doing here? And this comes with all due respect to every prospect that's in that trade, and we like all of those guys. TJ says it all the time. Those guys are awesome, and we were rooting for them to be stars, and we were rooting for them to have every ounce of success they can possibly have. But if you were talking about this from a baseball perspective, like at some point, you have to push the trade chips in to try and win. You have to try and go win. When is that point? And for Ronald Acuña Jr., that should be everybody's tipping point.
You know the issue with this in terms of the voting here? We could break this trade down in so many ways. So let's go at it piece by piece here. Let's start with the number one reason I'm seeing why people would turn this trade down. It's shockingly not because of the best player in the trade. People are not turning it down because you're trading away George Kirby to get Ronald Acuña. It seems like people are getting cold feet on this trade and this idea to go out getting Ronald Acuna Jr. is because they're trading prospects, not the big leaguers, not a top 15 bullpen arm and a top 30 starting pitcher in Major League Baseball, potentially higher. No, it's the prospects that people have a problem with. And that's where the problem is starting to perk up with me. Because like you just said, at some point you have to make a bad deal to try and get your roster to win in the next handful of years. You said it. You get 4 chances to try and go win a World Series with Ronald Acuna in this scenario right here. 4 chances to go win a World Series. Are any of those guys going to be as good as Ronald Acuna Jr.? Those bats, by the way, not the pitchers, the bats. Are any of those bats going to be as good as Ronald Acuna Jr. is the next 4 seasons at the big league level?
I'm going to go on a limb here and say no.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
So how is that? So how is keeping those guys in your system helping you win a World Series get you closer now?
So again, if more of the pushback was about not wanting to trade George Kirby, I would be much more open-minded to that. When I said a minute ago, what the fuck are we doing here? It doesn't have anything to do with George Kirby. If you were of the mindset of, I love this rotation staying together for as long as possible, I would not make that move to trade from the rotation. Look, I would still personally disagree because Ronald Acuna is such a game changer, but I much, much more understand where people are coming from because that's been the backbone of this team. Mm-hmm. When you are talking about guys in A-ball that you don't want to give up for Ronald Acuna, this is where you're losing me. And again, I think Colt Emerson really does have a chance to be a star, but it's going to take some time. And the way they have gone about their blueprint over these years hasn't gotten you where you want to get to at all. Like, does this next group of bats change that? Maybe. I can't for sure say no, but so far this process objectively has not worked. In 10 years, you made the playoffs once and you got swept out of the quarterfinals. That's just the term I use for ALDS because it gives people more of a picture to paint. 10 years,
in a different way of looking at it.
10 years, one playoff appearance, swept out of the ALDS. So I just, again, every team makes the big move at some point to really go all in. The Mariners haven't. I understand they traded for Luis. I understand they traded for Randy. Guess what? That hasn't been enough.
In a different way of thinking about this, for me personally, if you're like, I think the value of George Kirby in the rotation and Matt Brash in the bullpen is higher to this team in 2025 than the value of Ronald Acuna as a bat in this lineup in 2025. If that was your argument, and say, our chances of winning a World Series this season go down by making this trade. Fair. Very fair. You're talking about what we care about. And what we care about is winning the World Series with the roster as it's constructed with Ronald Acuna Jr. on it. That's what you think? Fine. Pitching's going to take you there. So focus on the pitching. Okay, great. But yeah, the prospects part of it, yeah.
I also think you could probably take Brash out of this trade. And I do wonder if that skews anybody's opinions differently. Because if the Braves are going to reset, I know Brash has all this club control. I don't really know what trading for a bullpen arm does for them in the next couple years. I honestly think you could take Brash out. If you made it Kirby and all those prospects, I would personally think that still gets it done. Mm-hmm. So
here's another thing I think about that I saw Jage talking about with this trade that I think makes a lot of sense. I feel like most people at this point are not expecting George Kirby to sign an extension, right?
Seems to be the vibe, yeah.
If that's the case, George Kirby's going to get traded no matter what because they're not letting him walk in free agency. They have shown if they're not going to keep extending somebody, they're going to trade him and try and get all the value back for him. If George Kirby's already going to get traded at some point in the future, would you not want to get Ronald Acuna back? Like, is it going to get better than this?
No. Again, George Kirby for Ronald Acuna, guess what? In a few years, if you trade Kirby, it's going to be for prospects. It is not going to be for an MVP.
And I would take the MVP because I don't really want prospects back for George Kirby. I'm sorry. I hate trading big leaguers for prospects, especially if you're trying to win in the future, right? So I feel like that part makes a ton of sense, and I'm glad Jage brought that brought that point up from the whole thing. Another thing, if I want to tie this back to the Juan Soto trade, with the first Juan Soto trade, where the Nats sent Soto to the Padres and the Padres sent the Hall of a Century back to the Nationals. You could argue that trade was a win-win from both sides. The Padres made the NLCS that year. You know, if a few things go differently, they could have made the World Series. That team was very good. They beat the Dodgers that year. And the Padres, you know, they drew a bunch of fans, et cetera, et cetera. So they got everything they wanted out of it. The Nationals right now have hit a home run with the prospect package they got back. James Woods in the home run derby. He's in the All-Star game. C.J. Abrams is a stud. Mackenzie Gore is one of the top strikeout pitchers in all of baseball. Robert Hassel's a big leaguer. The only one that didn't work out was like that fifth guy. But it doesn't matter with the fifth guy because you got four guys that are big leaguers right now.
Well,
Great.
The fifth guy still has upside. Harlan Susanna, however it's said, that guy throws like 101. Now his command's not very good, but I think the Nats still think he could be something at some point.
But the point is, I think the Nationals did as good as possible with that return package, right? So you'd say, yeah, we got a good value back for it. Say yes or no?
A lot of people would say the Nationals won that trade, yes.
Correct. The Nationals still suck.
Yep.
All those prospects doesn't equate to winning. And guess what? The Padres had to trade Juan Soto right back around, and they're doing just fine.
I think both things are true. The Nationals did win that trade, and they are still in a worse off spot. Like, listen, if the Mariners were to make that trade for Ronald Acuna, evaluators would almost certainly grade that trade as a win for the Braves, an overpay by the Mariners, and just by value terms would favor Atlanta's side. Guess what? I would still do it if I'm the Mariners. Because again, when do you truly show everybody that you are as serious as can possibly be about winning? Right now, it seems like they are just perfectly content shooting for wild cards all the time. Because that's the way the roster is constructed. Shoot for wild cards, hope something good happens. Well, that hasn't worked. Even, like right now, they're in the third wild card spot, and we've sat here plenty talking about the flaws of this roster. You go get Ronald Acuna, you pair him up with Cal, you pair him up with Julio, you pair him up with what you still have in the rotation. Different ball game, man.
Last thing for me on this, if you're worried about replacing George Kirby in the rotation, you might not find someone quite as good, but it's not as hard to get pitchers to come to Seattle as it is hitters. You could trade for a hitter, and you can sign a pitcher in free agency to occupy that rotation spot, or one of the guys in your farm system comes up and takes it a year, 2 years from now, and you fill with either our guy Logan or Emerson, or you sign someone to hold that spot over until the higher upside guys are there. Whichever way you want to go, like, you are able to fill. You've shown you've been able to fill your rotation with arms in a variety of places. So you got to trust your ability to do that.
Or, this is my final thing, the Mariners are about to pick third in a few days here, a little over a week. Let's say Cade Anderson falls to 3. There's a world Cade Anderson's up in the big leagues by the time we're recording this podcast at this point next year on 4th of July weekend. That would be a pretty quick turnaround for how you'd replace George Kirby, hypothetically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There are ways to make it work.
Last thing. So the Mariners trading these prospects hurts. You trade 3 top 100 prospects out of that group. Do you want to guess how many top 100 prospects would remain in the Mariners system after that trade?
Well, that would be 6 of them, wouldn't it?
And then you'll add probably 2 more in the draft in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'd do this.
So then your total would be back up to 8, right? See, like, you have so many prospects.
Yeah.
So many.
I mentioned the picking at 3 thing. I didn't even mention Gerangelo and Ryan Sloan, who would factor into the potential replacements one day too. And again, Logan Evans is already there. Other guys are already there. Like, there's going to be options.
And you're picking at 35 as well.
There's options.
There are a lot of options.
I think where we settle as we wrap this up, TJ and I are addressing that, yes, this is an overpay, and we would still do it.
Yep. Without a hesitation.
Yes. Love all those guys, but we'd still do it.
Let's get to the mailbag, but first...
Pub 85, our friends over at Pagacha's Pub 85. That's over in Kirkland. Hey, if you want to watch Ronald Acuna play for the Mariners here in just a few weeks, you can head right over there and do it. It's an awesome spot, you guys. You can watch all the games you want. There's 20 TVs in that place. There's things like pool. There's darts. There's a really cool jukebox. And there's awesome food and drinks. It's an awesome spot to go hang out with your friends. And if you want some drink specials, happy hours are awesome deals. $3 and $4, 2 to 6 p.m. happy hour drinks. Ton of great offerings between house wines, wells, beers, etc. It's awesome. Again, it's an awesome spot to go plan a time with your friends. That's Pagaccia's Pub 85 over in Kirkland.
Let's get to the mailbag, and reminder to all the listeners, if you want to be featured on a mailbag and you want priority, go sign up for our Patreon. A lot of awesome perks for our Patreon. We have an awesome chat room on that Patreon where you can talk with other Mariner fans. You have access to ad-free episodes. You get priority on mailbags. If you get to the highest tier, you have access to a monthly Lyle, Zoom call with Lyle and I. It's a great opportunity and a great way to support us as well with a ton of awesome perks. So, like many of our Patreon members who are featured in this episode, on this mailbag episode, that could be you. If you're interested, patreon.com/MarineLairPod. First question, Lyle, comes from FC Styles, and the question is, my preference is we go out and get 2 leverage bullpen arms and 1 bat. Either Gino or Naylor is the 1 bat. How many of our 9 top 100 prospects would you have to give up to get that? Assuming Pete Fairbanks is one of the strongest candidates.
Okay, so if you're going to get really serious about acquiring 2 bullpen arms, let's say it's 2 real leverage guys. Let's say it's Pete Fairbanks, and let's say it's David Bednar, who we both talked about. And then you go get Josh Naylor to play first. Honestly, 1, 2?
I would say 1.
It's not going to be a lot, you guys. Bullpen arms are not going to warrant insane prospect hauls in return, especially because Fairbanks and Bednar only have a year and a half of control. That's not nothing. But again, it's a reliever with 1.5 years of control. It's not some star bat with multiple years of control. So all that paired with half a year of either Josh Naylor or Gino, I don't think you're giving up the farm, man. So that is not an unrealistic or unreasonable expectation for a deadline, and it's something they can absolutely do. So I would say 1 to 2. It is not going to be a ton.
It might cost you 1 prospect from 11 to 20 in your system per player in this. Because Naylor's a rental. If Naylor had like a year and a half, perhaps that would cost a top 100 guy. But you only have him for 2 months, and you'd have to take on some salary to acquire him. And then the relievers, thankfully with the reliever market at the deadline, it's pretty saturated. There are a number of bullpen arms available, not publicly available, but probably available at the deadline. So teams have a little bit more freedom when they can go out and they can sign guys at the deadline. For example, you and I had no idea Ryan Stanek was available at the deadline last year, but the Mariners just traded him like that. And we're like, what? No idea. So that leaves the options open for you. So it really wouldn't hurt that much to go out there and do that. Problem is, every other team in baseball knows that some of those players would be available and also wouldn't have to break the bank to go get them. So the timing would have to work out for the Mariners to go acquire them.
No doubt. And I think they should, because they need bullpen arms. So I think they should go make those moves. Again, you can afford to give up 1 top 100 guy.
Yeah, 100%. Next question on the mailbag comes from Xander, and Xander says, love the bullpen banner content, guys. Xander, thank you. Appreciate the support. If you want to go check out our bullpen banner account, it's a lot of really fun stuff with players, fans, between the two of us. A lot of trivia, very catered, very fun, some creative ideas at Bullpen Banner Baseball all over social media. So Xander asks, who have been some of the favorite players that you have interviewed as part of this new content?
There's been some awesome dudes. This has been one of the cool things about it, is not just getting to know the Mariners guys, but getting to learn who some of the really cool personalities are around the rest of the game too. From up close. Obviously, you can see it from afar when you watch on TV or social media. I have an answer, but do you want to go first? I'm curious if we're going to think the same thing.
I wrote a list down of a few.
Okay.
Let's see how much overlap you have with what I wrote down. I started off with Pablo Lopez, one of the nicest people we have interacted with. Man, very genuine, very smart. He's super smart. Fun to learn about Pablo. Max Scherzer I have on here. Different kind of personality, but he was very nice and very open with us, which is great. For someone who is a Hall of Famer is pretty crazy.
Can I just stop you there?
Sure.
Those were the two names I had down. Pablo Lopez.
Well, those
Max
are the first
Scherzer.
two I wrote down. Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys were awesome. Also, when we're getting ready to ask Max Scherzer if he's got a minute to hop on the mic, you want some transparency? Is it a little nerve-wracking? Yes. Because you don't want to get told by this guy who's kind of known for being a psychopath on the mound to, like, blow up at you. And that's probably us overthinking it. But, you know, that nerve at times can kick in, especially with somebody like that. But, dude, he could not have been cooler. And then we spent, like, 5-7-ish minutes talking to him afterward, too. He was the man. I hope we have run-ins with Max Scherzer again moving forward, because that was so cool.
Like I said, the intensity is still there, though. Like, he was still, like, you could see it. The eyes are real.
Yeah.
When he looks at you with the two different colored eyes, you look, it's like, oh, that is different.
But
yeah.
Intense, sure, but really cool. Again,
he was cool.
We were talking about
it's a different kind of nice with him and Pablo. If that makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, Pablo Lopez, you could stop on the street and have like an elongated conversation with. He is unbelievably nice. It's pretty cool. And like you said, he's unbelievably smart too. I mean, he speaks 4 or 5 different languages. He's got his medical degree. He is a unique dude. He's not only an unreal pitcher, but he's just like an all well-rounded guy. Again, athleticism, brains, good people person. He really is awesome.
And when we interviewed him, he's still the only player we have interviewed to guess the exact number of what we're trying to get out of him. We asked him to name the all-time Venezuelan strikeout leaders, and he's like, oh, Felix is the all-time Venezuelan strikeout leader, and we said, yes. And then he gave us the exact number.
And we were like, oh my God. We're like, I don't even know if we could do that.
No. Nope.
We could do it with some home run leaders, but to get Felix's exact strikeout number for his career, there's no way I could tell you that off the top of my head. So that was crazy. Yeah, Pablo was awesome. Scherzer was awesome. Scherzer said he may want to get into media when he's done playing. And I said to him, if you wanted to get into media, 1, I think you'd be awesome at it. But 2, there would be such a long line of people that would stand up outside your door wanting you as part of their team. So I said, if you get into it, you're gonna have your options, dude.
I wrote down a couple more. Kobe Mayo.
Yeah, he was great.
Kobe was cool. Marcus Semien. It's been a couple years now we've gotten him on the mic. He was awesome. Aaron Nola.
Yeah.
Also, A+.
We talked to him last year, but yeah, he was really cool when we talked to him. So yeah, that's a good list. I second all of that.
Next Patreon question comes from Nick. This is a good question. Nick asks, do you think anyone in the Mariners organization listens to the podcast? If so, how does that affect, if at all, your takes and content? He said, feel free not to answer this one. But we're going to answer it. No problem. Thank you for the question, Nick. Lyle?
It's a good question. Short answer, yes. We know there are people in the org that listen. We know that players see our stuff, and sometimes that's social media. Sometimes it could be the podcast. But yes, like we know there's people in the org that listen. How does that change the things we say? Well, for those of you that listen regularly, or even however often you listen, I would hope your takeaway would be not at all. Because I would think the way we talk on here is pretty transparent. The feedback we've gotten, which is always cool for us to hear, because this is what we want to be, is people say, you guys are entertaining, you guys are personalities, and you call it how it is. You keep it real with people. And I would say, yes, that's 100% true. When the team's winning, we want to hype them up. We want to be fired up. We want to fire up the fan base because that's what's warranted. But if they're losing and they're not playing well, we do not, by any stretch, want to sit here and try to gaslight a fan base through our mouths. Like I would feel terrible and sick to my stomach doing that. The things you hear me and TJ talk about on this show, I wholeheartedly feel. So I would hope that comes through when you guys listen. And yes, despite knowing there are people in the org that do listen, it doesn't really change the way I talk about the team, because I basically talk about how I'm feeling.
We would not say anything on here. We wouldn't be able to tell anyone in the Mariners organization if they asked us about it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, then we'd be fake. And no one likes fake people.
No.
And we don't want to do that. And also, like, just, I guess, for a little background, like, the Mariners, of course, are, like, aware of who they are. They let us on the field to go talk to players and such. They would, as any organization would, be aware of who they are letting on the field and what they are saying. So, like, that's just kind of how it is. Whoever gets a credential gets, they listen and pay attention to a little bit. But again, Lyle and I have no problem saying what we say because we would wholeheartedly say it if someone asked us about it and had a problem with something we said. We're happy to just disagree and talk it through in person if there's a problem with it.
Yeah. I mean, you want me to say what people are probably sitting there thinking right now? If somebody were to come up to us and have an issue with something we've said about their spending habits, yes, we would sit there and say, you guys do not do enough financially to try and help this team win a World Series. That is how we feel. Now, are people in the Mariners org going to agree with that? There are probably some people that would feel differently as the way they've operated. That is not how TJ and I feel. And whether that's right or wrong is up for people's interpretation, but that's how we feel. So that's what we're going to sit here and say.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, though, Nick. It's a seriously good question. We appreciate your support on Patreon and all of you guys' questions. Like these are the kind of questions, like, feel free. Like, if you are seriously curious about something, we are happy to answer it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite questions we've gotten, seriously. So shout out to you, Nick. And like, we've talked to a couple college kids that are in media and looking to get into the media world about just questions they have about media, baseball media, trends, social media habits, etc. Like, we are always happy to talk baseball, but if anybody has questions like Nick just asked, if it's like an appropriate thing for us to answer, we're happy to answer it because we want to give people as much insight as we can. So yeah, this was a really cool one.
Next question comes from Robert on Patreon, and the question is, you guys have a baseball stats website that you recommend, need to upgrade from the ESPN app. Willing to pay a little bit of money for a subscription.
You know what's nice, Robert, is you don't actually have to pay a subscription to get some good baseball websites to try and use for reference. I will say, I do say this with all the respect in the world to ESPN. Don't use ESPN for baseball stats. It doesn't tell a good picture. It doesn't have enough information. The interface is just okay. I would say, Robert, if you need 3 sites, Baseball Reference, Fangraphs, Baseball Savant, all tell you a little bit of a different story, but all do a really, really good job in painting pictures on who players and teams are. And if you want full transparency, those 3 sites TJ and I are using all the time to bring here to this podcast for reference on numbers.
Reference is the most user-friendly, I will say. It's a little bit easier to get around. It's a little bit of a simpler look. I think Fangraphs and Savant are a little bit more detailed, a little bit more specific, maybe a little bit more niche. If you could potentially be overwhelmed by advanced statistics, probably not the site for you. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of different factors with everything. I think Baseball Reference keeps it very simple. And Baseball Reference, for the most part, is free. Both Fangraphs and Reference have paid options, which allow you a little bit more freedom for things. You can do specific searches and things like that. But if you're just trying to go look at a player's page, both of those have great free options. You just have to deal with some ads. So,
yeah.
Next question comes from Jacob on Instagram. Jacob has a good question based off of one of the hottest Mariners prospect. His question is, since Laz Montez just got promoted to Double A, and he's already hitting very well, what are the chances Laz Montez sees the big leagues this year?
Just about 0. And we like Laz Montez, obviously. He's such a fun personality with a bat that, if the ceiling all hits, has a chance to be a 35-plus homer guy, which is super exciting. But he's 20 years old. He just got to Double A. He's one of the youngest players in Double A. He needs time to develop. The line TJ's used, and I will second it and continue to use it as well. He probably needs 1 calendar year minimum in Double A. So the rest of this season and until at least about mid-June next season. Once he gets to that period, then reevaluate. Then decide what you want to do with Laz. Is it time for AAA? Is it time for the majors, etc.? But by that point, he'd be 21, still one of the youngest players in Double A. He'd certainly be one of the youngest players in AAA, and he'd be one of the youngest players in the big leagues. He needs that time. He still strikes out a lot. He still has some defensive things to try and shore up. So as exciting as he's been, he does need time. So I don't think we'll see him this year.
Laz, for reference, played 118 games in Everett before his promotion, about 530 at-bats. He's right now at 39 at-bats at Arkansas and less than 10 games played. At least let him get up to those numbers he put up in Everett. The amount of games played, the amount of at-bats, if not more, and then go from there. Here's what Laz is going to have to deal with as he goes up in the minor leagues and potentially into the big leagues. It's not only just defense, right? Laz has made his billing in the minor leagues. He's walked a ton, and he's hit for a ton of power, about as much power as anyone in the minor leagues, which are two great traits to have. What happens when he starts getting to the higher levels? Double-A is the start of one of them, where the pitcher stuff is that much better, and they've better controlled the strike zone, and instead of pitching around Laz and walking him because of the prodigious power, they go right after him with good stuff. Then how are his stats going to look when he does that? Because Laz's weakness right now, and to preview this, we'll have Aram Layton from Just Baseball on the call-up and the Just Baseball show on next Wednesday's podcast to preview the draft. We did ask him about Laz, too. One of Laz's flaws in his offensive game right now, he still has quite a bit of swing and miss in the strike zone. And that's something that teams look at when they evaluate whether or not a player is ready. You can see the results of what Laz does when he does hit a baseball, but what about what he does when he doesn't hit a baseball, and how often does that occur? Right now, there's still a lot of swing and miss when a pitcher throws the ball in the strike zone, and I'm sure the Mariners, before they promote him, would want to see that rate go up.
No doubt. Yeah, I second all of that. Awesome that he's gotten off to such a hot start, but he needs a lot of time.
Yeah. Last question comes from Andrew on Instagram, and Andrew's question is, Maikel Garcia at the trade deadline. One good reason why it shouldn't happen.
I don't have one, but the Royals would probably not do this because he's got a ton of club control. He's 25, and they are not looking to trade one of the two best bats on their roster.
Not only two best, Lyle, I looked at their Fangraphs page today, the Royals Fangraphs page. They have two guys. They essentially have two good hitters, and he's one of them. It's him and Bobby Witt.
Yeah.
He's hitting better than Bobby Witt is right now. In fact, I believe they're the only two hitters, or it's close, that have been worth over half a win. Half. They're not trading him.
No. Yeah, I would love Maikel Garcia to play third, but I don't think it's happening. It is a good idea, though.
He has 4 RBers after this year. So he's on league minimum this year, and then he's a Super 2. He'll start arbitration next season. That's a long way they got to go worth of control before they even think about something like that.
Yeah. We do have one more. There's one other Patreon question. It came from Krista, and she said, Lyle, when you played baseball in high school, were you ever asked to bunt? And if so, how did you react? Funny you ask. I must have been one of the worst bunters in the history of high school baseball. I was so bad at it. Believe it or not, this is not the reason I hate bunting. You may hear this and think it is. I hate bunting because I just think in Major League Baseball, it is totally counterproductive of how to score runs in today's day and age. So is it fine in high school baseball? Sure. High school baseball is a lot different than the big leagues. But to answer the question, I was awful at it. And there was one time I remember, it was senior night over at Lake Washington High School. We're playing a game down at Lee Johnson Field. It's packed. There's a bunch of people in town. It's a nice night. I'm getting my at-bat for senior night because I was a bench player on our high school baseball team. And our coach tells me, potentially be prepared to bunt if the guy ahead of me gets on to lead off the inning. I go, what? I literally look back at my coach. I go, what? Not only have they seen me feebly attempt to bunt in practice all year and look just ridiculous trying to do it, but it's like I get one of the few at-bats I'm going to get all year, and I have to drop down a bunt on senior night. I'm thinking to myself, fuck no. And if anybody from L-Dub's listening to this, I'm sorry that 8 years later this is how I feel, but this is how I felt, and this is how I felt in that moment. Now, I didn't actually end up having a bunt. I didn't get the bunt sign. But when I heard potentially have to bunt, yeah, I was pissed. So in shocking fashion, I'm sure, Krista, I had no interest. So fast forward to now, I still hate bunting.
I'm kind of disappointed in you. Not because of the concept of bunting, but not being a team player. I know that's how you guys won games.
It is how we won games. But, again, I don't hate bunting in high school baseball because the game is so different. And the idea of manufacturing runs and playing good fundamental baseball in high school has merit because there is such a talent discrepancy in high school baseball a lot of the time. But again, I barely got to play on this team. Let me just call it how it is. I was a glorified cheerleader on our high school baseball team. Okay, we were really good. I loved every second of it. We won the state title in high school and beat Corbin Carroll, like I've talked about on this podcast plenty. It is some of the best times I've ever had. But I'm going to call it like how it is. I didn't get that many at-bats, and the few at-bats I got in that season, I didn't want to be bunting. So, yeah.
Did you start a game?
Yes. We played a game at T-Mobile Park because we sold all those Mariners tickets back in high school. I got to start that, so that was cool.
Oh, wow. Did you play the whole game?
No, everybody gets in and plays that game.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
At least you got in the starting lineup. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I sat in the stands and watched those games.
All right. Well, to answer your question, I'm sorry if that comes off as not being a team player, but I had no interest in bunting baseball. So, again, I really didn't get that many. I did not get that many at-bats, you guys. So I don't feel that bad about saying I didn't want to bunt in one of my few at-bats.
Thank you guys for all the support and all the mailbag questions today. Again, we put out asks every single Wednesday, usually Wednesday evening. For the mailbag questions to record on Thursday for the Friday episode. Patreon's the best place for it, but we post it everywhere. If you want the priority on that, go to patreon.com/MarineLayerPod, and you'll have the option to sign up and get priority. And if you have a question every week, you'll get featured every single week here on this podcast. Let's wrap up the show, Lyle, and get to our number 4 MLB Draft Spotlight, potentially the highest upside in this entire draft.
Get me fired up about this dude. Seth Hernandez, 6'5", 195 pounds, right-handed pitcher out of Southern California, went to Corona High School. And man, can you dream on what this guy's ceiling can be. The stuff this guy has is ridiculous. The upside, I should say, is pretty ridiculous. Maybe it's not fair to call the stuff that at 18, but the potential of the stuff is nuts. You're talking about 4 pitches, all of them grayed out as potential plus offerings with a fastball changeup combo that has the upside of the best in this draft. He throws a fastball, changeup, curveball, slider. All of them are really good pitches combined with a tall, lanky, athletic dude who has a chance that if it all works out to pitch at the top of this rotation.
When we discussed Iva Arquette last episode, you said, I don't know if the upside here is high enough. I want to swing for the fences. I want to hit that top potential ceiling for this draft. This is the pick if you want that. If you want to swing for the absolute fences, Seth Hernandez is the pick. The problem when you swing for the fences is that you can also strike out as well, because among the risky demographics when picking, especially picking in the top 3, is going after a high school pitcher. The innings load is not built up. The maturity is not built up. There's a higher risk of injury with high schoolers. And it's less likely that they pan out than college pitchers. And that's why teams, it is risky to pick high school arms this high. What the payoff is, you could have Seth Hernandez in the big leagues at age 21 when he would be getting drafted otherwise, with an arsenal that, if it works out, would be as good as any pitcher in minor league baseball, which is something you can just dream on at this very point.
So let me spill the beans for everybody. How long have I been saying the Mariners need to take a swing in this draft and shoot to get a star? Well, Seth Hernandez is very high toward the top of my own personal list of who I'd love to see the Mariners draft. Is there a risk? Yes, because drafting high school pitchers, especially right-handed high school pitchers, doesn't always have the greatest track record. And you have to understand that there is potential there that it would not pan out. But when you've drafted enough college arms that have all worked and all panned out and all had success for you, great. Why not change it up just a little bit with a guy whose upside has a chance to be special not just good, special, when you have a pick like this at number 3 and regularly would get no chance at drafting a guy like this. I can get myself fired up about Seth Hernandez and that arsenal he displays. He's already throwing 98 as a high schooler. He's probably got room to grow in that regard. And he's already got 4 pitches that are really good. Imagine what the Mariners and their pitching lab could do with Seth Hernandez.
Now, why is drafting a high schooler so risky? Let's look at the examples of the Mariners' high school right-handers they've drafted in the top handful of rounds the last few years. Just think about it. Who is the highest? Well, actually, you know what? We can even just do the entire Jerry Dipoto era. Lyle, who has progressed the furthest in terms of right-handed high school starting pitchers in this Jerry Dipoto era within the organization without getting traded?
So all TJ means by this is who's at the highest level of minor league baseball.
Right.
We're not counting Ryan Sloan here because as we speak, even though his upside is by far the highest, he's only in low A right now.
And he's performing excellently. But right, yeah, it's still very early on.
Yeah, he's been awesome. Ryan Sloan has been awesome. But the guy that's progressed the farthest so far is Michael Morales, and he's in Double A.
Mm-hmm. And Michael Morales right now is on his 4th full season of minor league baseball and in Double A. Yes, as a high schooler, so the progression can be a little bit slower. But in terms of like the Mariners example, the Mariners haven't even liked to go out there and pick high schoolers because they understand, yeah, this profile is risky. And you know what? Their strategy has paid off. Logan Gilbert, college arm, big leaguer, stud. Brian Wu, college arm, big leaguer, stud. Bryce Miller, college arm, big leaguer, stud. George Kirby, college arm, big leaguer, stud. They have a type, and it has worked out very, very, very well for them. So would picking Seth Hernandez be a little bit outside of their realm, I'd say, of their comfortability and what they've done really well? Yeah. But you also don't usually get an opportunity to pick at number 3 and grab a guy with the talent level of Seth Hernandez.
I love this idea. As we wrap this one up, I would love to see the Mariners take a swing like this. I think it'd be really fun and an upside that is to dream on. So that's Seth Hernandez. Pretty exciting. Draft's coming up. We're getting really close. We got 3 more of these to do. This has been a blast. I can't wait for the draft to get here because it's time. All right, that just about wraps up this edition of the Marine Layer Podcast. You guys know the drill. Find all our stuff at marinelayerpod.com. Episodes, merch, Patreon, etc. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Download on the audio side, rate and review. We would love all the support. It means the world to us. So follow us across social media too, at Marine Layer Pod. That's TJ. I'm Lyle. As always, we thank you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.